Hey, I've got Paul Davies on the Vinyl Verdict. You played with Joey for many years, you manage the accounts, and you're quite a musician in your own right. So excited to get through kind of your story and tell it on the podcast. So thanks for being
Well,
here.
thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah, ever since 2004, I was just an average bass player, and I had
Oh,
my
there
own
you go.
Hofner. I have my own Hofner
I
bass
got
like
my
you
own
do.
Hofner
Yep,
back
yep.
there.
I have a '65 Hofner. I was in a Beatle band called a Beatle tribute band called the Fab Five,
Hmm.
and in 2004, I was working for an oldies radio station in sales, and the general manager asked me to put together a show celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Beatles Ed Sullivan invasion thing. It's the yellow poster behind me right there.
Oh, nice.
Right there, yeah.
We got to gradually
And
cover all the posters up there during
yeah,
our
oh
call.
yeah, and Joey's on two-thirds
There's
of
a
them.
story for each one. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I had done a little bit of work locally on a celebrity golf tournament. And so I was used to working with sports stars because of Syracuse University's basketball team and football team. So, but I'd never done a rock star thing. So now this is 2004. So the internet was a little bit different, you know, a little slower. But I found through an agent who was booking people like Billy J. Kramer, Terry Sylvester of the Hollies, the Zombies, and Joey's name was on the list. I basically inquired about having Joey play the big 40th anniversary event, and he was available, he was affordable, and so my band backed him up, and we played all the Badfinger hits and a couple of Beatles songs along the way, and we sold the place out. We had 1,000 people in a 1,000-person venue. And also Terry Sylvester of the Hollies was on the bill. They're both from Liverpool. So we called the show Liverpool, UK to Liverpool, USA. So we played Badfinger songs and Holly songs. And both Joey and Terry just liked the way that I put everything together, and I was the musical director, if you will. And they appreciated that I had put so much detail to the songs, playing them right. And then the next thing you know, get an inquiry about 6 months later to have the same show with them down at the local casino about a half hour away. Both Terry and Joey wanted me to work with them more. So it's just bit by bit by bit. It happened that way. That was 2004. And then end of 2009, I had an inquiry from Australia. They saw me with Joey on stage in a photo, this random person, and asked if Badfinger would come to Australia. And I'm like, you okay? All right. So I did my little diligence, and sure enough, within a few weeks, I had a 3-week tour with
Wow.
Terry and Joey set up for Australia, from Sydney to Melbourne to Adelaide to Perth and back again. And for a guy that had never worked with rock stars before, at 39 years old, who thought, oh, that's all I'm good for is being in a tribute band. All of a sudden, I'm being rocketed over the ocean to Australia, and getting paid for it. And the hotels were paid for, and the flights were paid for, and I get to play with my rock star heroes. And at that point, I was working with Joey on some merchandise. And then the year after that, I said, Joey, you don't have a website. You don't have any Facebook. You need to have this stuff. And then that's how I started being in communication with Joey pretty much on a weekly basis.
Wow. It's pretty
Yeah.
ahead of the curve too, already starting all that online commerce by 2010. So that's a
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
opportunity. And you started the Fab Five, so that specific tribute band was like 2001 or somewhere about then. So
Yes. Our first show was February 2001 on
that's
the,
pretty quick to go from just a couple of years of playing at that to supporting.
yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep. The thing, I surrounded myself in the Fab Five with 3 local Hall of Famers who were older than me by about 8 to 10 years, and they grew up on the Beatles. They were in the Beatles world. I was born in '65, so I grew up behind my older brothers. So I was surrounded by these Hall of Fame musicians, and we sang well, we played well, we got attention, we got booked for festivals all over the Northeast, and then we got booked to play Liverpool, England in 2004.
Yeah.
And we kind of used the show here in Liverpool, New York, to jumpstart our fundraising for the flights over to England. I mean, they gave us accommodations and all that stuff, and they gave us some money for flights. But we were all working stiff, so we we raised money. We went over. We played the Cavern Club a couple times. We played the Empire Theater, and and then various versions of the Fab Five. Went back again in 2006, and we backed up Joey at the Cavern Club, which was a huge thrill for me to back him up in his hometown of Liverpool, England.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. I'm interested. So before that, because the first time you met Joey then was 2004.
Correct.
I heard a rumor maybe you met Mike Gibbins a couple years before that.
Oh my God, who's telling you all this?
I do my research, Paul.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and the radio station I worked at before, I was in sales, and a local promoter put together a Beatles Fest downtown Syracuse at the Hotel Syracuse. His special guests were Ron, what's his name? I forgot his name. He was not a musician, but he was a promoter. He helped promote Bangladesh and the Rolling Stones, and Mike Gibbins. And so the promoter said, "Hey, man, can you pick up Mike Gibbins at the airport for me or at the hotel?" Sure. So I took Mike to lunch and Ron to lunch, and it's like I'm sitting here with Badfinger drummer. Cool, man. That was 1996 or 7.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, yep.
What was he like in person? Okay. Was that the only time you met him?
That was the only time I met him. Yeah, he was. Let's just say this is that when we were finishing up our lunch, he had come from the airport and he wanted a pint of some British ale, And so we had lunch, and then I got a call from the promoter saying, "Hey, we got to get Mike over here for his panel discussion." Okay, so Mike's beer was full, so paid for the dinner or lunch. And we were walking out of the restaurant, and Mike was walking out with a pint of beer. And I'm like, Mike, it's against the law, open container law. He didn't know. So he just kind of went boom down and okay, he goes, "All right, man, I'm ready to talk now." So it's the only time I hung out with him, but yeah. I got to meet him and of course be friends with Joey. So that's half a Badfinger. So that's pretty good.
That is pretty good. And obviously that's kind of a dream come true. Can we back up a little bit? I'm curious, you mentioned you had older brothers. You were kind of like a little too young for the original lineup, but what was your story of like discovering Badfinger and what made you pick up the bass? Like, I'd love to hear that origin.
Well, aside from the Warner Brothers record and the other one over there, my brothers had these, and and when you're 8, 9 years old with brothers that are much older, you're gonna like sneak into the record collection and start playing them on your little Fisher-Price turntable, right? And of course, the Fisher-Price turntable had a metal needle that just carved notches in these records, and they hated me for it. But anyhow, when I was 10 years old, I got my library card. This is a true story. I went in, and instead of going to any books, I went right to the records. Between my brothers and me, we had all the Beatle records. And so I was starting to look into other directions, like, John Lennon, Paul McCartney. Da, da. So I look under John Lennon, and they have the Imagine record, which is another one. It's on the far end over there. But yeah, so, when you're 10 in 1975, it's like magic. It's like, ooh, I pull the record out, and I see the inner, the record sleeve with all the pictures of the musicians. And there's this picture of this cheeky looking, guy with a little smile and and I'm like, oh, he looks like he'd be fun to hang out with, and then I saw the name Joey Badfinger, Joey and Tommy Badfingers. And, when I listened to the record, the Imagine record, my favorite song was Jealous Guy. So who knew that, 30 years later, I was going to be playing in shows with Joey, playing Jealous Guy. He and I playing acoustic guitars on our little acoustic Storyteller show. It's just mind-blowing stuff that I was kind of sensing it when I was 10. Oh, no matter what, I mean, come on, that was my favorite Badfinger song from the get-go. It happened to be the first song that Joey recorded with the band, and and I asked him along the way. I said, "Man, do you played that slide solo, right?" He goes, "Yeah, man." He goes, "There was a Gibbs no, it was a Hofner lap steel on the wall of Abbey Road, and I just pulled it off and I started playing around with it, and it sounded good, and they all wanted me to play a solo on it, so. And I'm going to cut into his accent. I'm sorry.
Yeah, please do. If anyone can do it.
Because I did so many Storyteller shows with him, I'm used to it. And he goes, you know what? He goes, that's the same lap steel that John played in the Let It Be sessions before you blew, Right. And I'm like, oh, really? Wow. So he's got the energy of John Lennon in his first Badfinger song. Mm-hmm. But, that's the magic right there, man. Yeah. That's the magic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Not to mention kind of that low harmony that he does in that song that's very Lennon-esque too. Yeah.
Yep.
Were you starstruck or anything when you were on the stage with him? How'd you get over that imposter syndrome and actually learn the parts and feel comfortable?
That's a great way of asking. Well, I guess because I had practice with the celebrity golf tournament that I helped run for Syracuse University basketball coach Jim Boeheim, I had to work with some of the greatest NFL, Major League. I mean, I'm talking. If anyone here listening is a baseball fan, to be able to work with people like, Bobby Thompson and Ralph Branca, the shot heard around the world kind of thing, Goose Gossage, Phil Rizzuto of the Yankees. Oh, and I'm a Mets fan. Sorry, anybody, but to have 4 Miracle Mets from 1969 involved in the golf tournament, and I'm hanging out with them, I learned that, they're just people too. They're used to being encountered by starstruck people, and this is what the best part about Joey is that if anyone was ever gobsmacked or starstruck, he made them feel very comfortable and he talked to them on a real level. Mm-hmm. So whenever we went to a festival or convention and I helped him with his merchandise and stuff, Joey's line was always triple what anybody else's was, no matter how important they were in the Beatles world or whatever, because everyone knew he was the nicest rock star in the world, and he would give people their FaceTime and talk to them on a real level and just show appreciation. And then they'd say, can we have a picture with you? Oh, yeah, man, come on. Hey, Paul, take a picture of it. So that was my job. Yeah. and I did it happily, so.
Definitely. He never made you feel rushed or anything like that. It was unbelievable.
Well, I made him feel rushed because of the line. He goes, hey, man, I'm having a conversation here. Back off, mate. It's like, okay. Yeah. I never took it personally.
No, he always prioritized the fans. What was his kind of, attention to detail and everything with the music? Was he a perfectionist in learning each part, or was he?
Well, he wanted everyone to be prepared. I mean, I did everything from a 2-man, just him and me, 2-man Storyteller show, which was very easy because I knew all the songs anyway, and I knew where to sing high harmonies or low harmonies, a piano part or a guitar part. I just, I fell into it. Whenever there was a backing band situation, I had to make sure that those musicians knew, here's a great example is, hey, we're going to play Without You, right? I can't live if living is without you. And I had to make sure and tell those musicians, we are not playing the Nilsson version. Yeah. I can't live if living is without you. I know your listeners are going to love that. But we did not do the Nilsson version because it wasn't the Badfinger version. So I had to make sure in advance that all these musicians knew that's what we're doing.
Even some of the way that he played those songs live always, I thought, he put his own twist on them. The Joey, Suitcase always did it a different way. So yep. Did you guys have chord sheets or anything going into it in the beginning? Or
no, but I mean, have you ever heard of that 80-20 rule? 80% of the time we played the hits the way the hits. Mm-hmm. But then we start playing things like Suitcase or Come Down Hard or I Got You. He was very big on eye contact, making sure the hands were right and smiling and going with the flow. So 80% of the time was prepared. There was always that 20% that was like, whoa, let's go over here. Well, let's slide over here, and that's what made it fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask you about Love Is Going to Come at Last, because I've heard rumors over time that obviously it's, I think, one of the the best songs. It deserves to be a hit as much as anything else Badfinger put out there.
It was a single. It just didn't chart very well.
Yeah. But he didn't play it live too often. I heard that's because of the difficulty of kind of singing and playing the slide part at the same time.
Right. Which speaking only for myself, if we did that song probably 3 or 4 times in whatever group of musicians I had. And I always made sure that I had a slide guitar player that could play the part for Joey, so he could just play the guitar and just sing.
Yeah.
And and so when they came out and started, he just smiled. He was going with it,
Were there any other songs like that though that were maybe the hardest to recreate live, or that were like kind of abandoned?
Oh, meanwhile, back at the ranch.
He did that one for his whole solo career almost. Yeah.
We did that twice, and both times were hairy. It was one of those things where it's like you knew it, but it wasn't ingrained in your brain, like No Matter What or Baby Blue or any of the hits.
Mm-hmm.
So we did it twice, and we did okay. but at sound check, oh boy, and I'll take the hit on that one. I screwed up the guitar part. My bad. I had too much on my mind,
It's a long song. I always found it really interesting because Joey loved his soloing style. He's classic rock and roll, like and sometimes he'll go off on these different scales and the timing and whatever. But there were a couple tracks where he stuck exactly to what he played on the record. And like Meanwhile Back at the Ranch is one of them. Baby Blue, he played the solo note for note. But sometimes he'd jam on him a little longer, especially like you said, his solo stuff, No More. He'd do like those extended jams. Was there any kind of structure you guys had on that, or were you just look at each other again and sort of give
it would be let's go in with the structure of the record, but then then he would like do the old, hey man, let's keep going. He always did this thing with his shoulder where he was pumping the guitar, and it's like, okay, one more, guys. That's kind of but that's what made it fun.
Yeah, no, and that keeps it. That's what live music should be, right? You're not just lip syncing the record. So, but did you have any favorite songs to play with him or anything like that, Missa?
Well, every song had a special thing for me. There were times for day after day that I'd be playing either acoustic, my 12-string, or playing bass, or playing the piano part. And if I'm playing the piano part, the part of me inside is going, oh my God, I'm playing the Leon Russell part.
Yeah, that's tough.
Cool, Yeah. Or if I'm playing Jealous Guy with him in the acoustic Storyteller show, it's just me and him. He's strumming and I'm playing the piano and I'm playing Nicky Hopkins. And I'm like, this is really cool. So every song has a different meaning to it. For me, I miss not doing the acoustic shows with him anymore because it was just me and him.
Yeah, that's special.
We did probably 20 of those over a 10-year period. That's another thing about Joey is that he was very cool about allowing me into his world, into the green rooms, into the backstage thing. I got to meet all of my heroes, some of whom have gone, who've passed on, like Denny Lane, Hilton Valentine of the Animals. Jeez, I got to meet the Zombies, the Rascals, Three Dog Night. I'm going to tell this story. I love this. So he and I had an acoustic storyteller show here in Syracuse about the same time here in 2016. We finished the show. It was great. And then we go up north to about an hour and a half to his big package tour, as they call it. A lot of stars. The Association, Ambrosia. I got to be friends with Ambrosia thanks to him. Denny Lane was there. Terry from the Hollies was there. So we get there to sound check, like 1 PM on a Saturday. And so you have all these musicians from members of bands like from Blues Image, The Knack, and Vanilla Fudge, and Blue Oyster Cult, and they're all just there, as a collective. And so Mark Lindsay from Paul Revere and the Raiders, it was time for his sound check. Joey and I are standing there off the stage, and Mark Lindsay's going, "Where's the bass player? Where's the bass player?" Burton Navarre from The Knack. "Where's the bass player?" And his flight was delayed. Joey walks up to Mark and goes, "Hey, Mark, you can borrow my bass player. He's right here." And I'm like, no. I have never played Paul Revere songs, but so he goes, "Okay, bass man, come on up." And I'm like, I run to my car, get the bass, go on up, plug in, tune in, tune up. And thank God, Mike Panera from Blues Image, who's also gone up to rock and roll heaven. I said, Mike, what key is this song? And he says, just, can you read my hands? I go, yeah, I can read your chords. He goes, just watch my hands. Okay. So I actually got to play bass for Mark Lindsay for the sound check with no one around, but people took pictures. So I have the proof. But then but also Mark Stein of Vanilla Fudge for You Keep Me Hanging On, Chuck Negron of Three Dog Night. Yeah. I happen to know the songs he did, the Bouchard Brothers from Blue Oyster Cult. And so I'm like, how did I get here? How did this average musician who can't read music get surrounded by all of these rock stars that I grew up with and love? It's Joey Molland. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Hey, Mom, you can borrow my bass player. Trial by fire, man.
Yeah, but you got to give him credit where credit's due. So, I mean, what would you say you kind of learned from Joey playing with him all those years, or what inspiration? Was it kind of this like more relaxed attitude to just go out there and do it and kind of jamming along with them, or
living in the moment or playing in the moment? You know, in fact, one time during a sound check, one of the musicians didn't play whatever song, the part right. And Joey goes, stop, you know, and the guy was his first time playing with Joey. So he was starstruck and he goes, I was just trying to play it like the record. You know, I screwed up. He goes, Joey's like, no, man, don't worry about the record. Worry about what's going on right now. Yeah. Be here right now. And it's like, okay, all right. I get that. And I just became a better musician thanks to him, just by sometimes just watching him, not playing with him, you know?
Yeah. I think a lot of us have done that. Just watch his fingers and you get, oh, I didn't know you could do that. Or
right.
He stays in that, like, oh, he's there a little bit longer than I might've stayed on those notes, or he's doing, so.
Here's a story I tell a lot. He was in town for a show here, and he grew up in World War II, Liverpool. So he was, very frugal. So if he came to town and the flight was $100 cheaper, staying an extra day, he'd do it, which is because he stayed at my house, to save on hotel money. So I said, Joey, while you're in town an extra day, can I take you in the recording studio and do a John Lennon song? It would mean a lot to me. And he goes, oh yeah, man, we can do that. So we went in the studio and we were playing Grow Old With Me. And what I wanted to recreate was the wall of sound from Phil Spector, just like the John Lennon record. So I said, you got your guitar, I got my guitar. There's a 12 string on the wall and there's another 12 string on the wall. And I said, I want to play 4 guitars at once for the wall of sound thing. We started recording and I was doing grow old, dun, 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 dun. My hand was just doing whatever my hand was doing naturally. And we did one take. And the tape, it blew up with the second verse. And he goes, man, you can't play like that. I go, what do you mean? He goes, excuse my language, but it's a fucking John Lennon song. I go, okay. I said, what does that mean? He goes, when I came in the studio, he said, no messing about, guys. Just chunga, chunga, chunga. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, and your viewers, listeners, whenever you see if you watch the Let It Be sessions, right? With John and Paul in the studio with Billy Preston and all that. If you watch the Now and Then, Beatles Now and Then, or even the anthology for Real Love and Free as a Bird, chunga, chunga. I'm going to do this. Chunga, chunga, chunga.
Need the visual aid.
Right, thank you, yeah. And he says, that's how you match up. He says, man, you watch the Bangladesh video, that's all we're doing, chunga, chunga, chunga. Because George and John drilled that into his head that you just do this. Yeah. And like I said, if you watch the Beatles anthologies and the Now and Then video, Paul and George are doing this. Yeah. And I woke up, I'm like, wow. And so we did Grow Old With Me, one take, and then we put the next layer on. And I will never, ever, ever forget that, because he said, we were doing Day After Day, and we were doing the All Things Must Pass. He's like, George is like, no, mate, it's just like Junga, Junga, Junga. Apparently that was Beatle talk for gung, gung, da, 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 da. And that's how you make a hit record.
Huh. Yeah.
That was like gold.
Get the foundation of it. Yeah, I mean, even Baby Blue,
at the end of the rainbow, it was like Chunga Chungas at the end of the rainbow.
I think even on Baby Blue, there's a guitar kind of doing that, an acoustic or something. They really did have that sound.
All of them. And to this day, you listen to a McCartney record, he's like, da 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 da, da 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 da. All of them. Yeah.
Put it straight. Yeah. No, sometimes there's the simpler solution is the easy one, right? With music, just keep it.
Less is more, baby. Yeah. Less is more.
Would love to go a little bit deeper into, you mentioned that you played at the Cavern Club. What was it like going with Joey back to his home world, seeing it through his eyes? And I believe he was the best man at your wedding, or the wedding vows.
Oh, yeah.
What's that story?
Yeah. Well, I worked that in while we were all there, but yeah. I'm no longer with her, but it was a good 15 years with Linda. So we were the other Paul and Linda from the other Liverpool, and we got married at Strawberry Fields. We had a ceremony. It wasn't legal, but we had a ceremony at Strawberry Fields, and Joey was both the best man, and he gave the bride away. That's the kind of a guy he was. He didn't say, "Oh, that's not my style, man." No, he did it. He loved it. He was happy to be there. And then we went right from the wedding to the Cavern Club for sound check, and we got ready for that. We had Spencer Davis Group opened up for us. This is Joey of Badfinger. We are not Badfinger, but we're supporting him. Mm-hmm. But the Spencer Davis Group opened up for us, so that was kind of a heady thing. We're in the back room sweating our what's off, because it's so hot and sweaty down there. Here I am. I'm talking to Spencer Davis. Give me some loving. Not you, Spencer, but the song. And and we had a nice chat. And that show, in the crowd was Pete Best, the original Beatles drummer, and his brother Rogue. And then somehow, through circumstances, Rogue reached out to me on email when I got back to America and said, "Hey, we're coming to America in a few months. Your band is great. Can you guys do some shows with us?" And I'm like, holy cow, I'm going to play with a Beatle now. That's really all because of what Joey did. He
opened doors. And what was this? So it was hot, obviously. The Cavern. Joey played the Cavern
back in the day.
Yeah. So did he have memories?
I told him. I said, "Now I know why you're so skinny. You sweated it off." And I said, "Dude," "how did you do this? Yeah. How did you play in leather jackets in this?" And the water dripping off the walls and onto the floor, and puddles forming of people's sweat, steamy sweat. And he goes, it was the scene, man. That's what we did,
Yeah, it's part of the
then we pick up our amps and go upstairs and go to the club down the road and play another show. I'm like, that's rock and roll, man. Yeah, that's rock and roll.
that's where the sound came from, I guess. That and then and then did you also met Klaus Voormann while you were out there, or was that another occasion?
Yeah, well, yes, kind of, sort of. The first time, not the year I was with Joey, but the next time I was over, I was playing in an acoustic duo with somebody, Stan Bullock, great drummer from North Carolina. We were just having a fun acoustic duo. We were playing in the Hard Day's Night Hotel, and Klaus came in with his wife, and he just stood there and he watched us playing, and it's like, Klaus Voormann's in the audience. This is really cool. And that was that. But then for Beatle Fest down in New York City, that I helped Joey with his merchandise, I was able to go through and meet Klaus and have him sign my Revolver record, because that's a bare minimum with Klaus. And then the Imagine record, Klaus played bass on the Imagine record, and I had him sign that too. And he had a charity donation for animals of some type, some animals, PETA maybe. But Klaus remembered being here in Syracuse at John and Yoko's art exhibit. He goes, "Oh, I remember this and I remember that, and we were jamming in the hotel room." Well, he's German; he doesn't talk like that. But anyway,
it works for everybody.
But he remembered being here in Syracuse and how lovely a time it was. So it was a little connecting rod.
That's awesome. And obviously the connecting rod to Badfinger too. So that's interesting.
Absolutely. Yep.
So they just going forward a little bit. So you mentioned the Cavern show. Maybe there's some starts and stops. You do Legends of Liverpool in Australia. I think the Storyteller Show started in 2012. What was like the inspiration from that? Was that an idea you came up with and pitched to Joey?
It was an idea I came up with because, selfishly I wanted to play with him more, but he was complaining, that whatever booking agents he was working with, they weren't getting him much work. He needed to make a little bit of money, like all those nostalgia artists do when they go through dips, peaks and valleys. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, if we develop a 2-man storyteller show, I said, it's pack up and go. We don't need amps. We don't need anything. We just need acoustic guitars, and the venue can give me a piano to play, and we can go anywhere and do this. And it was successful. We sold out the first show. It was like a 300 seat venue that I think we sold 400 tickets for. But we played Chicago twice, and we played Pittsburgh Open Hard Rock Cafe, Toronto a couple of times. Actually, we found some work up in Toronto. In Buffalo. It was me. I wanted him to make some money, but I wanted to play with him, and just be in that special situation. So,
and to tell his story, which I think is what's so touching about it, because a lot, he goes out and plays these hit songs over and over again, but he also.
But that's it. He was playing songs from his days growing up in Liverpool when he played in the Masterminds, his first band, who got the attention of Andrew Loog Oldham from the Rolling Stones. And, he's 16 years old going to a studio in London to record a song. I mean, that's a head trip to begin with, Then the next year he got recruited to play with Gary Walker in the Rain. And he's he would tell the story of, we landed in Japan and they were screaming like we were the Beatles. And he goes, and of course we weren't, but can you imagine being 17, 18 years old with screaming girls in an airport? And I say, can you imagine? Because that's the storytelling thing. It's like, it just takes you to a place. And then the story of how he got the call from his friend Billy Kinsley from the Mersey Beats, who had been asked to audition. I mean, Billy and Joey were considered for auditioning for the Rolling Stones after Brian Jones left. But it just didn't happen. But Billy got the call from Pete Ham to audition. And Billy was a straight bass player, but Tom Evans, of course, switched to bass. So so Billy calls up Joey. He goes, "Hey man, they need a guitar player." And so Joey asked Billy to go with him to the audition in London. And then the rest is history because he passed the audition.
Were there any stories that Joey didn't tell? Any deleted scenes that were maybe not deemed appropriate or didn't work or weren't like mainstream enough to make sense to that audience?
He talked about, and I'll touch upon some of these. Like he would talk about how they toured with the Who in England, and it was before the Who were commercially successful, but they were still popular. So they were on the tour bus, and he said, the girls were after them, right, and they're chasing the bus. And so Keith Moon would like open the bus window and take a whole bunch of pennies and throw them out the window. And he, what's this? Boom. And all these people were like picking up the pennies so that they'd stop chasing the bus and things like that. He told stories about opening for Small Faces and Faces. That's a beautiful thing. I did 2 shows with Ian McCloggin, the keyboard player from Faces. He did a duo himself with another guy from Syracuse. So we coordinated on that. So Mac and Joey, we went to an Irish pub after the show, and the two of them were like, talking about old times. Me and the people that I was with, we left them alone. Two rock stars from the day kind of reconnecting. We didn't want to infringe on that, but it was very sweet. He would talk about, before we played Jealous Guy, he talked about coming into John Lennon's mansion at Tittenhurst. The driver came, got them. They walked in with their acoustics, and they went into this big library, big tall ceiling, books everywhere, and there was no doors. So they had to find the door, and it was one of those secret doors. And when they went through that secret door, they went into some storage room, and he used to say there was crates and crates and crates of Dr. Pepper. It's, and it's like, oh, they drank that. And then finally, when they got into the storage room, somebody said, hey, oh yeah, the studio's over here. And so he walks in the studio, he and Tommy, and Phil Spector is passed out on the couch with a bottle of Cavassier and a 45 on the couch. And Joey's like, what have I gotten myself into? But he was led in the studio, and then he says, yeah, we were there, a couple of stools, and John came in. He goes, right, lads, how are you? All right, no messing about. This is how it goes.
Yeah.
And so he told that, always told that story. He told about how he and Tommy and Pete would go into Abbey Road to record All Things Must Pass. He called it the Big Blue Box. It was big plywood box that was painted blue, that they stuffed the three of them with one microphone in front of three guitars, the three guitars they were playing. And he goes, I remember, he says, we were tuning up, and Mal Evans was walking around with envelopes for everybody, pay, hey, here's your session fee, It's like, God, and there's Eric Clapton walking in, carrying his own Fender Champ amp, Those little fly on the wall things, man, those were gold. That's why I did the Storyteller Show. Right. I wanted to hear those things over and over and over again.
Yeah, no, it's part of history. Let's chat about the business side a little bit, because it was around that same time that you started getting involved in that piece. What was like Joey's business sense like? Obviously, that's a sensitive topic given everything.
I stayed out of it, to tell you the truth.
Yeah,
I stayed out of it, but he would tell me bits and pieces if his royalties came in from England or from America. I learned how to bring it in over time. Okay. So I was able to get him to focus on these shirts.
Yeah. Sold out now. These are collectibles.
Right. I certainly hope so. But I always stayed out of the business out of respect, because it wasn't my business. But he would share some things every now and then. Like during the Storyteller Show, after the Breaking Bad success, right? He goes, yeah, man, all of a sudden, everybody's playing Baby Blue, and it's #1 on Apple in 13 countries, and Pandora is going through the roof. And he goes, about 6 months later, I get a check for $13 fucking dollars.
What?
Oh, yeah. From Pandora.
Wow.
Penny a play? Hello.
That's crazy.
And then about 2 or 3 days later after that, and again, true story, I'm in the shower, and my mind goes places in the shower, and I'm like, Breaking Bad Finger, and I just went, and so I went to my T-shirt guys that do these, and we had already done a straight up shirt, a no dice shirt, Badfinger hats, that kind of thing, and so I asked them to put a design together. And I hand wrote it out, on a napkin. And I said, "Can you guys do this?" Wow. And they said, "Yeah." And then the world is so small. A friend of mine in college, her brother was actually a music production guy for Breaking Bad. Oh, wow. So I sent over the design to get the approval to print the shirts. The lady was very nice, and she emailed me. She said, "Yeah." Him and Haw, just don't sell them on eBay or on a broad channel. Just sell it privately at shows and on your website.
But were there any other kind of like specific types of shows or merch or anything like that he was always working on?
He was working on, he just wanted to get, he had his CD Return to Memphis, which mainly was a result of him getting stuff out of his system that he'd been holding for a while, especially since his wife Kathy had passed away, and so he wanted to get those emotional, romantic songs out. And he picked the wrong record label to promote it. It didn't sell well, but then he did his Be True to Yourself with Mark Hudson producing it, and it was a killer album. And he got better play on it this time thanks to the modern GoFundMe kind of thing. Yeah. Selling sponsorships and that kind of thing.
I thought that did great, and he was all over. He had those music videos. He was doing great, but I heard some interviews with him where he said didn't perform as well as he was expecting to.
It was a letdown for him, but that's the record label, part of it.
Great record.
You know, when the record label sets up an interview on the Beatles channel on Sirius XM, and he's talking about it, and at the same time, there's some Badfinger covers like Rick Springfield doing Baby Blue. Why? Don't know. Or Rick Wakeman from Yes doing Come and Get It. Why? I don't know. But they would ask him about be true to yourself. He had Julian Lennon, Mickey Dolenz, Jason Sheff from Chicago, all these guests that were on the CD.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're coming out of his interview segment playing Rick Wakeman's Come and Get It. It's like, how is that helping? Industry stuff, man. That's why I stay out of it.
One specific story I wanted to ask you about. I think you were there 2014 when you saw Paul McCartney live in, was it Minneapolis? And you actually went backstage and met some of the band? What was that like?
Yeah. What happened is that about 6 months prior to that, out of nowhere on Facebook, I got a message from Brian Ray, the blonde who plays guitar and bass in McCartney's band. And he goes, "Hey man, are you in Badfinger? I love Badfinger." You know, I'm like, "Well, I'm not really in Badfinger, but I am a side guy for him. I do his merch." And we just started a conversation. And then about a month or two later, they announced the tour, Minneapolis. And I'm like, "Hey, hey Joey, you want to go to Paul?" And he goes, "Oh man, I'm not booked that night." So I wrote Brian. I go, "Hey Brian," I go, "You want to meet Joey? He lives in Minneapolis." And he goes, "Yeah." And he set us up for passes. We got back. We hung out in the band lounge, as they call it. So we met Brian, Abe, Rusty, Wicks. But, it's McCartney. So we weren't able to kiss the hem of the garment.
Yeah.
We didn't meet Paul, but we were backstage. We hung out with the band, and it was a wonderful experience. And I'm not ashamed to say that I drank 4 Stella Artois that were in the lounge because they were free. And you gotta live in the moment. And then we had like 7th row seats, thanks to Brian.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. And it's too bad that Paul didn't come in there though. I mean, what a moment that would have been. Because I don't think Joey ever even met him during the.
No, he worked with George, recorded with John. He played poker with Ringo in Los Angeles at some type of record label party, and they were playing cards. And he goes, "I beat Ringo at poker," but Ringo goes, "Oh, I left me wallet in the room. Let me go up and get it." And he never came back. So that's so Liverpool right there.
Yeah, it is. It's
so Liverpool. But he did say that he was at a Los Angeles record label party of some type where McCartney and his wife Linda were there. But he goes, "I was just too afraid to meet him." Really, he was, but yeah, what are you gonna do?
That's amazing that he's in the 7th row like us. He should be on that stage. But
I know.
What was did Joey have any impressions of the show? Any takeaway you remember?
I'm not gonna lie, he was starstruck the whole time.
Yeah.
And again, you may want to edit this out, but it's like, "Hey man, that's Paul fucking McCartney."
If you say it in Joey's accent, you can drop all the F-bombs you want.
Same thing in 2005. I'd only known Joey for a year. Yeah. He was playing at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for some type of fundraiser. He was there. Terry from the Hollies was there. So I had those 2 connections. And Nelson twins were there. Mark Farner from Grand Funk and Martha Reeves. So he goes, "Hey man, we're going to so-and-so hotel after the show. You can join us." Now I'd only known him for a year, and he's inviting me to an after party. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Woo, And so we're standing there with Joey, and he's like, "Hey man, that's Martha fucking Reeves." Yeah, he's like this, Joey was as big of a fan as I was a big of a fan of him, and that made him real and regular to me.
That is really
Joey. Can you introduce me to her? Oh, he goes, you introduce me to her, kind of thing. Yeah. But that was a good time too.
That is cool to be on the other side of it with him. And then 2018, I was reading, so Joey was inducted into the International Beatle Week Hall of Fame at the Cavern.
Yes.
So that was back in Liverpool? Was there like a ceremony for that or anything?
Yeah, it was just basically a plaque presentation, and they put his name on a brick.
Okay.
outside the cavern wall. But yeah, it was kind of ceremonial, but it was still nice.
Yeah.
It was still nice for him to be recognized like that because he had played Beatle Week probably 4 or 5 times in his life. And I just found out earlier today. I get emails and messages from Badfinger fans all the time, which is good because I can't be everywhere. The Fest for Beatle fans in Chicago is coming up in middle of August, and they posted a tribute to Joey on the Beatle Fest page, and I was sent a picture of it. So I'm going to be posting after I get off the phone with you. I'm going to be posting it.
No, that was great. I read the whole convention is dedicated to him this year, I think was the
Yeah.
post, which is really
Yep.
touching. I mean,
Yep.
he
And
played there enough.
when we did the show in Manhattan that Mark Hudson ran the day after Memorial Day, the Lapidoses, who run Beatle Fest for 50 plus years, they were there helping to raise money
Mm.
for Mary and Joey's kids, Joe and Sean, for the medical bills left behind. So yeah, we raised I think $14,000.
Yeah, it was
You
a great show. Someone recorded it, so I saw that the
Yeah.
TV show as well. Did you guys
Yep.
didn't even have a chance to do a rehearsal for that one? I mean,
We had a 1 hour rehearsal for 14 songs.
wow, that is tough.
But I'm telling you, that's the magic. I mean, here I am, the most average musician in the world, but those are Badfinger songs,
Yeah.
including "Jealous Guy" with Billy J. Kramer, and "Wah Wah."
Mhm.
It's like we all came together, and boom,
Yeah.
we nailed most of those songs,
Yeah,
which
I know you
was
did. What was the last show that you played with Joey? I was trying to look back. Were you playing even up until the last years?
when I personally played with Joey.
Uh-huh.
Was my last beat? It was my final Beetlejuice production in February of last year,
Mm.
about a year and a half ago. He was my headliner, and it was great. I mean, we played, the four big hits that we always play, but we also played "Jealous Guy" with the official video behind us on the big screen, and we were able to sync up the actual recording of John, just the voice, and dropped it into "Jealous Guy" as we are playing the song.
It's
But
awesome.
and we had a click track so that we kept on time. And the whole time, Joey's looking back at this. All Joey is doing is just strumming the guitar, chunga chunga chung. Oop, I'm over here, chunga chunga chunga, and he's watching the big screen TV and just enjoying reliving the moment because the video was of John in the studio
Yeah,
when Joey was there.
that's
So
cool.
that was my parting gift to him. I knew it was going to be probably the last time that I played with him, at least here in Syracuse. So that was my parting gift to him. He was great at Happy Together.
Yeah,
His energy was okay.
same
I
band
remember
too.
walking around with him after the same Happy Together show, the Cowsills and
Mhm.
Jane and the Americans and all that. I walked around with him afterwards, and he just said, he goes, "Oh, man, I'm really tired, man." He just talked about how tired he was, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, you
Yeah,
know. But
yeah,
I just nodded my head and go, yeah, well, hey, dude, you're 76 or
yeah.
77. It's going to happen.
It's sure. Okay. I mean, he's just been through so much. You figure he's invincible. I mean, that's Joey.
Yeah, yeah.
Did he play any of those 50 years ago shows? I thought he did one or two of them, or he never even started the
Oh,
tour.
yeah, he was on two of those tours in 2019.
Or the one in 24 though. Did he play any of those?
The night before the first show,
Oh,
he went home. He
okay.
just said, it doesn't feel right to be here. He
Yeah.
apologized. In fact, I don't know if I should say this or not, but he left
Okay.
he had a pedal board and his guitar. I mean, we're talking his Les Paul. He
Yeah.
left it on the tour bus and just flew home. That's how much he just wanted to go home. He got all his stuff back. I know that, but
Mhm.
that to me said, "Oh, something's wrong."
Did he have any plans to, do further touring with you or record music or anything like that at the
Well,
time?
recording music, not touring or performing with me, that was always kind of like on a, if it happened basis. But he was in the middle of in fact, I think he got about 2/3 of the way through recording a Chuck Berry tribute album down in Nashville with our good friend Phil Solom of the Rembrandts. Phil told me that they had gotten a lot of stuff done on the Chuck Berry tribute, and they were going to finish it after the 50 years tour was over. So of course that didn't happen. So and just while I'm thinking of it, I'm looking at my poster in front of me that you can't see. It's from my 2017 Beetlejuice show, where Joey was the headliner, and also Hilton Valentine of the Animals, God rest his soul as well. We played the Sgt. Pepper album with a full orchestra that year, and I arranged for Joey and Hilton to play together 2 Chuck Berry songs because it brought them back to their days in the 60s playing in the clubs. And so with the orchestra, our finale was Roll Over Beethoven, ELO version, with a da 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 with the string ensemble, and then it gets through the da 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 da. Joey and Hilton were like 20 years old again. It was great. And then we also played Say the Joint Was Rocking, going round and round, bum, ba, bum. So we played that Chuck Berry tune too. It just brought those 2 guys back to being in their 20s.
Yeah. That's what they grew up on.
And I was happy to do it for them.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
I became friends with a lady named Cheryl Lawless, who was the Apple Records secretary. She was friends with, Leslie, and being British, Leslie is a male name, who was a professional photographer, okay? He took the first photo shoot of the new band called Badfinger, and he took solo shots of all 4 members as well as a group shot. Okay. So about 15 years ago, Joey was thinking about ways to like increase some money. And I made the suggestion of, well, why don't you sell a limited edition photo? Right. So I had this photo done by Leslie. Okay.
Wow. I've never seen that shot of him.
It's a black and white photo.
Yeah.
But I had my artist make it psychedelic.
Wow.
Okay. And I said, Joey, let's do this, and we can sell like a limited edition, and you can make money that way. But it just never, these things happen. It just didn't go. Okay. If you see down here,
it's crazy.
It says 1 of 1.
That's as limited as it gets.
So this is my prized possession right here. Oh, and of course the Joey Molland pick.
from wow.
And I said, Joe, they cost 10 cents to make. You sell them for $1 at the shows, you're making 90 cents. We sold hundreds of those. That's the kind of stuff that I was doing for them.
That's pretty cool. I mean, that is real, like, stuff for the fans, right? To get like an original kind of print. And that's earlier. That looks like Gary Walker era. I'd never seen him in Badfinger.
That was December 1969. He was 21 years old.
It's really great to connect, Paul. Thanks again for making the time and everything. I know
you too.
So
well, thank you. And I was, and when he passed away, I was asked. I learned a lot with him and working with him, for him. And when he passed, I found out very quickly that when all the major media outlets like Variety, Rolling Stone, TV stations, all the USA Today, they were all asking me for statements, and it's like they weren't contacting the family, they were contacting me. And it's like I felt weird talking from my first person perspective about how great he was, and how, performing with him was great and all that. But I learned quickly, how to tackle that. And so it was an honor. It was an honor to, escort him up to rock and roll heaven in this way.
Yeah.
And, I owe him everything.
Yeah. Well, you don't need to hear it from me, but I think you've done a great job with those social media channels, by the way. And I think it's a true service to him. You've been able to kind of get that support from everyone and communicate with, it's a lot of people that you're dealing with. I know you had those issues with like, some bad actors, trying to sell merch and whatever. And it's a full-time job. So the way that you were able to take that on,
I do appreciate you saying that at such a young age. But I guess to close out, it was nice to have after we did the memorial show down in Manhattan on May 30th or whatever it was, and like a day or two later, Mark Hudson texted me and said, Hey, man. Joey loved you and everything you did for him. Don't you ever forget that. So that makes it all worthwhile. Sorry.
It's powerful, though. That's
So helping him was part of my purpose on this planet. So that makes me happy. Sorry.
That's indisputable. You really did. I mean, I don't think there was anyone else who could have done that job the way you did it. And that you did the duets with him. Who else did that? You know, that's really special. Yeah, that is really special. And that's why I've always wanted to reach out to you and kind of understand what it was like, because you were the one in that position, in pole position that he put there.
Luckiest man on the face of the earth.
Well, thanks so much again, Paul, for making the time. I know it's a lot.
Thank you. And
It was great chatting with you.
Nice meeting you. Yeah, we'll talk soon. I know we will.